Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on this webinar on how to control your cloud costs. We have an exciting set of speakers today. We have Nick Soper from Tyrell Cloud. We have Nick Warburton from Symply, and this is me, TC, from StorageDNA. Before we dive in, let's go over the agenda really quick. We're going to start off by talking about some of the key challenges to cloud adoption, more specifically, what we believe is the number one challenge to cloud adoption. We're going to then hand it to Nick from Tyrell, who's going to walk us through some real life challenges that their customers have faced and how Tyrell has helped these clients migrate workloads into cloud. We're then going to move on to Nick from Symply, who's going to cover a new option to cloud storage, which brings some very efficient cost dynamics to the table. We'll then follow that up with me walking you through StorageDNA's brand new cost modeling tool. It's been 3 years in the making. It's a labor of love, and it's a free tool we are offering to everybody to be able to understand and predict their cloud costs, specifically storage costs, more efficiently. And with that, we'll end with some concluding thoughts, right? So let's dive right in. One of the key things that kind of emerges when we talk to our customers about adopting cloud are the key challenges. And cloud is here to stay. Cloud is great. We're seeing a pretty steady migration to cloud, but it's not without its challenges. And these challenges vary from performance to migrating large data sets and workloads, security, access control, technical know-how, governance, vendor lock-in. How do you manage both on-premise and cloud, which is hybrid? Connectivity and exposure, right? But the one sort of key challenge that jumps out above all others tends to really be around unpredictable costs and cost management. We have veteran users who've been using cloud for years, continues to be a challenge for them. And then we have end users who are looking to adopt cloud, and understanding how cloud providers charge continues to be a challenge for them as well. So, we are consistently seeing cost management, cost prediction as a key challenge to adopting cloud. And, Nick, we have from Tyrell Cloud, has a bunch of war stories in which, while they have helped their clients migrate to cloud, these same challenges have come up, and he's got some great suggestions on how to tackle these challenges as you migrate to cloud. So with that, Nick, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and Tyrell Cloud?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, TC. Thanks very much for the invite of being on the webinar today as well. So a bit about me. I'm a industry veteran, 27 years in television, worked for a multitude of vendors, customers, and integrators. And that's given me a great stepping stone to rejoin Tyrell to manage their cloud strategy and to bring to market Tyrell Cloud. So what is Tyrell Cloud? Well, we've been considering our strategy for about 2 or 3 years now, and we've worked on some specific consultative driven projects and realized cloud is complicated. Cloud is tough, and cloud costs money if you don't control it. So we set about during COVID times to invest in tooling ourselves up with cloud knowledge, cloud engineering, to give us a future, essentially, to become the 21st century systems integrator. So Tyrell Cloud is a fully managed multi-vendor automation platform with an aim really to make cloud simple. And that's the key challenge that we're facing, is the simplicity. We take care, or we like to think we take care of the complexities that you've already mentioned. So deployment, security, governance, and most importantly, cost management. We've invested heavily in DevOps engineering skill to help us deliver a platform that's succinct, efficient, and able to deliver the services that you had on the screen just then, right, to our clients. So really, Tyrell Cloud is the new dimension of Tyrell, as we all know, but representing key vendors that are cloud native or cloud capable to deliver industry capabilities, so transfer capabilities, capture capabilities, and above all, the content creation tooling that we already are very well known for. So editing, shared storage, and now obviously the accepted norm of remote working. So
right.
on the screen, the selection of cloud services we've already delivered to market with our key partners, and we're obviously in discussions with StorageDNA, looking at the cost calculator, and to implement that into Tyrell Cloud as well to give that extra visibility.
Right.
One thing on this journey we have learned, and we've accrued now, very proud to say, is we're an AWS select tier partner. So
right.
we've got our stripes on our arm, we've got the war stories, we've got the experience to actually deliver platforms and products and solutions for our clients.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And as we've been chatting over the past few months, you had some great stories, and can you hint at some of sort of the key challenges that our viewers can sort of watch out for as they're planning their own journey to cloud?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So part of our own inward learning, we discovered the complexity of cloud deployment ourselves around deployment methods and principally around cost. Keeping cost under control is paramount. And that stretches from compute, storage, networking, ingress, and obviously the dreaded egress.
Right.
So workflow, we like to think that our workflow capabilities encompass all of these challenges, but cost is a primary challenge, and also how to report that to our users. So for example, to deliver Tyrell Cloud Workstation, we choreograph 20 odd different AWS services to deliver our remote workstation capability. So we've got to have good cost control.
Right.
We're also working with some customers on storage migration, so long-term archive, fitting underneath their tier one edit storage, and hence our discussions with yourselves about Fabric and also the cost calculator. But
Absolutely.
some of the challenges that the customers have faced really are market forces. So the supply chain issues, that's encouraging people to go to cloud. So supply chain for us, we're known as a hardware provider, a solution provider. That's caused us massive grief. So cloud's really, really enabling new workflows, new projects to launch much quicker.
Right.
One of our key clients actually wanted to invest in remote working, but they couldn't do so without a multi-building strategy. So that was enforced CapEx, another market force per se.
True.
Cloud enabled that to be abstracted from their on-premise environment.
Right.
And some other key elements and challenges that our clients are facing is, where do we start? If we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the skills. So solution design, workflow design, who's the engineering team that we can turn to build it and maintain it for us? Account creation and governance, and obviously then comes down to cost management as well. So the FD stays happy. And then the final point really is, if I want to go and do this, how do I cost it? And tools such as yourselves, of the cost calculator we're talking about today, is going to be a tremendous asset moving forward.
Right. No, thank you. I think what you're saying, we're kind of hearing that echoed in the industry. I think so. The first step to migrating to cloud tends to be, I'm going to take a bunch of data, I'm going to put it in the cloud, and I think that's sort of the simple first step. Your backup, your DR, your archive. But I think the key points or the real benefits of cloud really start to come about when you're moving your compute infrastructure, your application infrastructure to cloud. And I think that's where things get a lot more complex. And that's really where I think that Tyrell Cloud is coming in and really making it an interesting plug and play experience, right? With all of these different components. I think, there's some very interesting bits that you and Tyrell Cloud are working on. So no, thank you for giving us those bits of advice and highlights. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Nick from Symply. And Nick's going to be telling us a little bit more about Nebula Cloud. Now, a few months back when we were chatting, Nick mentioned Nebula Cloud to us, and I'm not going to take his thunder away, but there's some very interesting cost efficiencies that Symply is bringing to the table with Nebula Cloud. So Nick, with that, I'm going to pass it to you. Do you tell us a little bit about yourself to start out with, and about Symply Nebula?
Great. Thanks again, TC, for the invite, and Nick, for your overview. Very interesting. So, but myself, I'm 20 years almost, so not quite Nick's 27 in the industry, but I'm kind of an out and out storage guy. That's my background, disk, tape, and obviously now cloud and object solutions.
Right.
That's my kind of pedigree, solving problems for our customers for 20 years on that front. Symply, we were founded back in 2016 with a mission to deliver better workflow tools and storage solutions, primarily for the kind of Apple media and entertainment type environment, SMBs. But our philosophy is to kind of treat all our customers the same. You might just be buying a sort of a Thunderbolt storage device from us. You might be buying Symply Nebula. You might be buying thousands. You might be buying one. But for us, it's all about support and providing that sort of top level of support to our customers. Symply's grown. We were acquired, or I work for Global Distribution. It's now part of the Global Distribution family, but that's the company I've been working with for 20 years. But the philosophy and ethos has stayed very similar. So Nebula Cloud, to bring us back on track, is our single tier performant cloud storage offering. So we don't do the sort of compute like the guys from AWS and GCP and those guys. We're just a single tier storage. So likewise, we don't do the kind of the cooler tiers of cloud storage. So we don't do the kind of backing off to tape that Amazon and Azure do as well. And obviously GCP do as well. So that's a little bit about me and Symply Nebula. I guess the question next is why did we build Nebula? There's a lot of storage, cloud storage tiers on the market.
Exactly.
Indeed. And our usage model is, which I'll come on to later, is very much in line with what TC was just saying a few moments ago about that kind of first step and getting data into the cloud. But again, during the pandemic, we were engineering our new Symply First product line, which incorporates disk products, incorporates tape, LTO products, and cloud products. And that launched in September 2021. So we're just coming up to our first year anniversary, which is great. But while we were developing that, rather like Nick Soper was saying, we were finding out what were the pain points, what were people's problems, what were the or perceived problems with the cloud, and they distilled down to sort of three things in our mind. One was performance, and I'm not necessarily talking about performance to the cloud, because again, Fabric from DNA or other guys, other tools can help solve those problems. I'm talking about kind of performance in the cloud. Data being siloed, again, a lot of the larger providers, the big three as it were, tend to silo your data in specific regions, so it's quite difficult to move data out of that region, or if you can, there's sort of a significant cost kind of associated with it. And then as Nick's also said, and you've hinted at, it's the elephant in the room. It's how much does it actually cost me over time, this kind of unpredictable pricing model. So the first two of those, sort of performance and data being siloed, we solve with technology. So the traditional providers, they run a hub and spoke type design, been around for a long time. We're a globally distributed mesh of nodes, so all our nodes are interconnected. They're all connected at high speed. They actually sit on a 50 terabit second network globally. So there's massive interconnectivity between all the nodes. And there's also proprietary acceleration technology that moves the data between the nodes more efficiently. So that provides us with this ability to not silo the data. What's in one node can easily be moved to another node. Also, as you'd expect from cloud provider, we provide erasure coding without going into all the messy details. We provide that kind of 11.9 sort of gold standard of data durability that everybody provides. But the way our algorithms move the data across our storage nodes means that on our physical disk platters, we put the objects, so small objects go to the smaller part of this, bigger objects to the larger part of the disks. And that means that when you're actually doing those put and get operations, we're performing faster than a lot of our competition. And our metrics show that on large files, we're about 10x faster than the AWSs and Azures, but on small files, we're up to 120 times faster than those guys. So our systems are both optimized for small files and large files. I know it sounds a bit counterintuitive.
No, but I think that's one of the key drawbacks of object storage. Is you traditionally was saying that small files, they're it's good for bandwidth, but not great for IOPS. And I think that's a very critical differentiation that you've built into Nebula. So.
Yeah. Combined with that, also our mesh is obviously co-located. We're on the same network. So if you're on, again, the Amazon GCPs, etc., we're co-located. We can on-ramp you very quickly, and that'll come, into our usage model on how we sort of manage that. But the final piece of the puzzle is the pricing. So, we're a flat tier, we're a price per terabyte, and that is the cost. There's no kind of ingress, there's no egress, there's no, I know TC, you're going to talk about this, no kind of IO charges, API charges, those kind of things. No hidden costs, kind of fair usage. Again, a lot of the single tier storage providers, such that run a similar model, they do have those gotchas in there that they'll thrust in bandwidth, or you can only egress sort of a percentage of what you ingress. So from that point of view, we just want to be totally transparent, and the price per terabyte you pay is just what you pay.
Excellent.
Hopefully that solves the third part of the puzzle with the pricing.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think there's some really, I would say, the top 3 or 4 pain points that we hear from our customers looking to adopt cloud and cloud storage. And I think you guys are definitely hitting all the right pain points. Now, as you've sort of taken Nebula to market, what are some of the key workflows that you're seeing it, more naturally and organically fit with end users? So.
Exactly. These 3 that you see here are probably no surprise to TC or to Nick. Active archive, and I'm kind of going to roll in also to that backup and DR because they're much the same type of usage model. So archives in media, they tend not to be, they're said to have a very long tail. Most archives you hear this have got a long tail that goes off into the distance. You kind of don't know when your piece of data is going to be valuable. And for media and entertainment, that could be for quite a finite period of time. Some event happens and you can't get access to your media quickly, you can't monetize it. So that's one aspect of it. We're providing you that hot storage that will just persist. Yes, as we'll see with your cost calculator, you can go to a lower tier of storage. Of course you can. You can go and put it into, a deep archive within Azure or AWS or the like, but you've got you've got penalties for bringing it back, and there's also a time delay to sort of get that back. Backup, also a lot of people, not really talking about backup and especially ransomware. In the IT market, the enterprise sort of space, all you hear is ransomware. In media, again, there's not that many people talking about it, and I think that that definitely needs actually to change in the market. People have to share.
I think it's happening behind closed doors, and people are just not talking about it. I think I don't think it's not happening, to be honest. So.
Yeah. Exactly, and that's where the combination of Nebula with, for example, your Fabric product that allows people to sort of properly protect their Avid environments or whatever against sort of ransomware and make sure that your data is properly protected. So there's that sort of active archive DR kind of strategy part to it. The other part is data replication. Again, kind of going back to our mesh infrastructure, as I've kind of already hinted at. For us to make a copy, upload copies into kind of a London data center and move it to New York, for example, we only charge for the additional storage. So you take, you upload 50 terabytes into a bucket in London, that will pop out in the New York bucket. So you're paying for the additional 50 terabytes. We don't charge for the data move. There's no cost for that data move to happen. So people can use that, obviously, just for sharing data. So we can move data between our nodes, makes it very easy for international companies to collaborate.
One of the things I want to interject is the 3-2-1, right, which is considered the holy grail of data protection. It was something that was almost impossible to achieve. You know what I'm saying? 3 copies, 2 in different locations. And I think with the technologies that are available, especially with Nebula, 3 to 1's pretty much a plug and play. I think you set up your policies as you're describing it, and it's done for you, right? So that's another aspect that how cloud's helping with data protection. Hit these utopian data protection policies now. So
yeah, absolutely. So that you answered my final point on the data replication. It is that's the other use case is for geo-spreading and protecting the data, which is a serious requirement for a lot of people. So
right.
And then the third use case, which is I think from media, I'm calling it kind of real-time data applications. You're going to hear it called multi-cloud in more kind of in different verticals. It's called multi-cloud, but for media, it's the idea again. We've got this high performance bucket, 120x faster on small files, 10x faster on kind of large objects.
Right.
I keep saying files, I mean objects. Everybody hopefully gets. But yeah, so the idea is that you can use one performance provider, hopefully Symply Nebula, to store your data, and then you can then go and choose the best of breed, applications from Tyrell Cloud with AWS or whoever else it might be to run, data analytics, machine learning, or AI algorithms. So speech to text or facial recognition. The idea is because we have this fast interconnect with those compute providers, why lock yourself in?
And with zero egress, right? So you could take your data from Nebula into any of these cloud providers as you're describing, and run your compute, but you don't have to keep it there, I guess, right? You could keep it in Nebula.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the idea is that let's say today Amazon has the best facial recognition. Tomorrow it might be Oracle or IBM. Or someone maybe we've never heard of before.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
The idea is that your data sits in one place, and all these, as I said, you can choose the best of breed compute services to sort of hit that bucket and provide the content that you want.
Right. No, interesting. Very cool. Yeah, no, again, I'm kind of going to reiterate that Nebula is bringing some very, very interesting value props to the table, and thank you for being on this webinar and giving us a deeper insight into Nebula. So awesome. So with that, I think we've heard Nick Soper, Nick Warburton, both sort of echo this common challenge of how do you manage your cloud costs, and we repeatedly heard that too from our end users, right? So a few years ago, we kind of launched Fabric, which is our cloud optimized data management platform. And as we sort of took this to market, a common question that came about was, hey, that's great. You're helping us mobilize our data to cloud, but end users, wanted to know which cloud provider to pick. And generally our answer was, hey, the cloud provider has a cloud cost tool. Why don't you guys do the research? And customers came back and said, yes, have you looked at those cloud tools? And took a look, and we quickly found that it was very, very complicated, right? So we started kind of researching into maybe we should build a cloud cost modeling tool, as something to offer our end users and our partners. So we kind of embarked on that journey, and it's been honestly a labor of love. It's probably 3 years in the making. It's been one of my side projects, and I've been stealing a couple of engineers to kind of keep it going. And the reason it's taken sort of so long is because it's not simple, in a nutshell, right? As we started to add more cloud providers, more APIs, it kind of ballooned out of control. But in essence, what we ended up writing was an engine that scrapes the cost APIs across the major cloud providers. We started with AWS, and I kind of remember when we first started, we wrote a script, it scraped the API cost, and what came out was hundreds and thousands of fields in a CSV file. That's literally, or an XML, and that's literally how it all pours out. It's not properly formatted. It's almost designed to be more cryptic than the bill AWS generates when you look at your monthly bill, right? So it is, I think, by design, not supposed to be something that's easy to parse. So the first goal became, for the first 3 months, is looking at these numbers and just making sense of it, right? A single tier has multiple ways they charge you for storing, for accessing, for egressing. What do they all mean? So when we kind of started, to what I would call, data cleanse these numbers, we started to categorize them into different buckets of IO costs, read costs, API costs. We started to kind of get our heads around it. We said, okay, we've got AWS under control. Let's look at Azure. And that was another challenge. And then Google, and that was another challenge. And I think this whole exercise, we kept adding more providers. And we've added, other providers too. We've added Avid EOD, we've added LifeCloud from Seagate, we've added Nebula. And what we now have, I think, is an interesting sort of starting point of a number of cloud providers, their storage, their object storage, and their different regions. And that's really what we want to give sort of back to the community as a free tool. We're launching it live as of this webinar, and it's something we're encouraging everybody to use, our end users and our partners. So with that, I'm going to dive in and give you guys a quick preview of how the cost modeling tool works. There's a QR code on there. You can scan that, and we'll also be sharing the URL. But let me kind of browse right into it. So the cost modeling tool, when you click on the URL, will take you to a login page. This login is, we don't really require to have a password, but it's just a simple login. Once you log in, you will be sort of brought to the landing page of the cost modeling calculator. And so the first thing I'll do is just move this into full screen view so it's easy for everybody to see. Cool, awesome. So what you're sort of greeted with is right now a blank screen, but the idea is simple. You start off with some storage or data you want to store in the cloud, and I think what would help is if we kind of take an example, right? So the example that I thought would be appropriate for this webinar is, let's take about a petabyte of storage that I want to store in the cloud, and let's say that I want to do this for some long-term archiving, right? So this data is not being heavily accessed, and let's say I have a restriction to keep this data within the EU/UK region because of government rules, some regulations, right? So the way this calculator can sort of help you is I'll put in that I want to store about a petabyte of storage. Nope, it's not a petabyte. I want to store it for about 12 months, and let's say I want to also. One of the interesting things that we found is the size of the files can have a very interesting effect on how you get charged. And this is especially from the big three, the AWS, the Google, and the Azures, right? So that's a very important input that we expect you as the end user to provide. And let's say for this case, we have 1 gig files, and I'm looking to access about 10% a month. So to sort of get started, I provide these basic inputs, and then I can kind of switch over and decide what providers and tiers and regions I want to see this compared to, right? So in this case, I have nothing selected, but for our example, let's pick AWS. We'll take Azure, we'll take Symply, Nebula, and we'll take Wasabi, just kind of to show you this. But I can put in other numbers, other providers, EOD, LucidLink, Frame.io, and a whole bunch. So when you log in, you guys can play with those yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. What you'll instantly see is that now I have a multiple of regions I can look forward to compare this to. So what we wanted was to get really detailed, right? Because there are specific rules now on where you can keep your data, right? So let's say I wanted to look at only the UK. So yes, Azure has a UK West, Symply has a UK one. And let me look at EU example as well, because that's what AWS calls it. So yeah, there's an EU London and there's a Wasabi EU, right? So what I've now done is chosen my providers and chosen my regions. So what is the next step? The next step is, what tier of storage do you want to keep this on? As you can see, Azure alone offers you a whole bunch of options, right? Which is great, but that's also confusing. So does AWS. Nebula keeps it simple. Wasabi keeps it even more simpler, right? The idea now is, let me go in and sort of choose which ones I want to pick. So let me pick Azure. From Azure, I'll pick Blob Archive, because I think for long-term storage, Archive is a good option. And I'll choose LRS, which is the least redundancy, but that's a lower cost of storage, again, for archiving. I'm not going to pick the hot tiers. And on the Nebula side, I'll choose standard. And on AWS, I'll choose Glacier, Glacier Deep, and infrequent access, right? So what I've now done is really narrowed in on the tier. But as we all know, that retrieval types also can make a big difference. So the calculator also just lets you pick the different retrieval types. And I'm going to leave them on for a second. But what you'll start to notice is, these grids will start to load up. Now, the third one is sort of the interesting one, which is what is my total cost for all those 12 months for the petabyte with 10% access across all of my providers, right? So if I sort from highest to lowest, you'll see that Blob, Archive, LRS, High Priority could cost me about $289,000, right? And if I scroll all the way down, I have Nebula in UK1 at about $71,000, right? So as you can see, I have a whole range of costs that I can compare from top to down, right? Now, if I switch and say, hey, what if I take egress out of the mix, which essentially means that I want to be accessing my data, but I'm going to repurpose it sort of within the same data center, right? And that's where you'll find that, like S3 Glacier Deep Archive at $28,000 is the most cost-effective tier of storage, as long as you keep that data within that same data center and you're okay with a bulk retrieval, which means it could take up to days. And sort of the numbers kind of go up from there, right? So what you'll see is that, if you're looking at no egress, there's a different sort of metrics you can look at. If you're looking with egress, there's a different set of metrics that you can look at, right? Now, what we also wanted to do is to say that, okay, I see these costs, but how are they broken down, right? What are those buckets or those subcategories that we're creating that lets you sort of see how you are being charged by the cloud provider? And this is sort of the interesting bit, right? So if you look at it, we break these costs up into a monthly storage cost, which is just the cost of storing your data, which is what you really hear all cloud providers highlight, right? And what I'll also highlight is somebody like Nebula truly has only one cost, right? Which is the monthly storage cost. All of the other costs sort of stay at zero, right? So, which is the interesting aspect about Nebula that I think Nick was alluding to earlier. Whereas a lot of the other cloud providers will tend to charge you for different costs. Like, for example, a lot of providers say that, hey, there's no charge to write data into the cloud, which is true, but there is an IO cost associated, which means you're not being charged per gigabyte, but you're being charged per IO. And this is sort of where, if your files are getting smaller, your IO costs are getting higher, right? And there is a cost to read your data out of the cloud, which is a gigabyte cost, but there's an IO cost as well, which also is directly related to the size of the files or objects you're storing in the cloud, right? And then there's obviously the dreaded egress cost. But what we try to tell end users is it's not just about egress. There's a lot of other costs on the table too. However, that said, if you take all of them into account, but you keep your data within the data center for AWS Azure, you can get some really good cost-effective storage. It's the egress that kind of starts throwing things off, where providers like Nebula come in and make it very cost-effective, right? So just a really quick preview and an example. What we've also added is an on-demand view. And the on-demand view is really interesting as well, right? The on-demand view is really sort of designed to give you an instant ability to sort of understand, what you're going to be charged for some activity that you're about to perform, right? So in this case, let's say I wanted to just look at, hey, if I'm accessing 10 TB of data from my cloud provider, how will I be charged? And let's say that, let me just get rid of all the filters here to show you a quick example. Right. So what this really allows you to do is to say that, okay, if let's say I want to egress 10 TB of data from AWS, and I want to do that from let's do it across all your regions. And let's say I want to keep that only for S3 Glacier. And I want to look at how much that egress would cost me across all of three. You could see I can instantly get my total cost, right? So this is a bit of an on-demand view that once you put in your tier and your location, we can tell you in real time what it's going to cost you to actually carry out that operation, right? And you could do this for data access, or you could just say, hey, I just want to store 10 TB of data in the cloud. So what is it going to cost me? All right, so let's take this number, for example. And then the on-demand view will tell you, hey, how much is it going to cost you with and without things like egress, right? So, we've got a prediction view and the on-demand view. So we encourage you all to sort of take a look, sign up to the modeling tool, play with us, and give us feedback. We are automatically updating this once a month, which means the APIs are refreshed once a month. But we'll be adding new providers, and if you want to see your favorite provider on here, just drop us a mail, and we can do that, right? So with that, we'll switch back to the presentation and the webinar, and move on to some concluding thoughts. So we'll first tee up Nick. Do you guys have some? Do you have some concluding thoughts for us and our viewers?
Yeah, most definitely. Thanks, TC. I think, first of all, and I think we're all in agreement on this one, cloud is definitely here to stay.
Absolutely.
It is the now and the future. What we're doing as a business is helping our clients understand how savings and efficiencies can be made. And this is about visibility, and also about it's about being sensible and not expecting everything to happen in the cloud. So taking a hybrid perspective as well. So I think our final message really is cloud is here. Tyrell is cloud capable. We're proving ourselves in multiple projects. So come and talk to us. Come and have a discussion. Let's open up that book of fear and break down those barriers for you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And Nick, are you guys going to be at IBC as well?
Yeah, we are. Looking forward to that. We're going to be back en masse at IBC, flying in for some vendor meetings before the show, and then we're there for the weekend. So we'll look forward to catching up and hopefully having a beer as well.
Absolutely. Excellent. Nick, do you have some departing thoughts for us?
I mean, it's just echoing what everybody's said so far. Cloud is here to stay. And we're going to be focusing on not only Nebula at IBC, but also workflows around Nebula and StorageDNA with Fabric. Right. But as Nick was just sort of hinting there a minute ago, is that we definitely see sort of hybrid. There's a lot of people and enabled by excellent companies like Tyrell that are going full throttle into the cloud, as it were, in some instances. But I think, as Nick so said, hybrid is probably going to be the way forward for most people for the foreseeable future. We've got some hybrid workflows that are going to be unveiled at IBC. So if you're at IBC, do come and see us there.
Excellent. And from ours, I think we believe cloud is here, is the future. And again, just echoing what you both have said is cloud's great. We all agree. We all got to go there, but let's not do it in a way that's being naive, right? We know there are challenges. We know there are hurdles, but it shouldn't translate into fear, right? With the right partner, with the right tools. I think cloud can be, it is the natural next step, and it is sort of, I think, users that we've spoken to that have adopted cloud in the right way, are getting massive benefits in their pipeline from it. So yes, we will be at IBC as well. We encourage you to check out our new cost modeling tool. And with that, I think that's it. Thank you so much, guys, for being on this webinar, and looking forward to hanging out with you guys at IBC. All right.